Welcome to beautiful Schenectady for yet another, I think the 30th or 35th year. We do not have snow on the ESPA annual meeting, so now that we're in April, it's a little less likely, but we do have an incredible streak of never having any more than a few flakes of snow at our annual meeting. So welcome to Schenectady for those of you out of town. Just a couple logistical items. There's coffee and tea and brochures out to the left, and if you go to the right and then take another right, the restrooms are down that hallway. If there is some type of an emergency, if you exit this door to the right and then take a left, that puts you out through the lobby, or you can also go, if it's an emergency, go straight out those doors into the little area between the buildings. So either one of those will get you outside in case of an emergency. We will be having lunch in the room next door after at about 12:30, and that'll be about an hour that we'll be in there, and then we'll come back in this room for the rest of the presentations this afternoon and discussion. Also, I just could have a hands of people just so everybody knows who is certified in CPR. So we have a number of people. If you look around and just take a quick look in case there is some type of medical emergency. The lobby is, of course, right down the hall as we come in. If there is some emergency, we do need to contact the front desk for that. Then just recognize some of our corporate sponsors, New York by Rail, New York State Tourism Industry Association, Discover Schenectady, and the Rail and Cruise Travel Center. Thanks a lot for those corporations for sponsoring ESPA and being supportive of our efforts to improve transit across New York State and, of course, local transit in the various cities of New York State. Ken? Yes, Ken?
Yeah. Could you move the microphone here to your mouth?
Bruce, did you want to say something about membership? Yeah. No. Let me go to the next one. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better? Okay, now on a serious, sad note, I would just like to recognize, unfortunately, over the last 8 to 10 months, we have lost a number of very active ESPA members and actually a couple of people that used to be president of ESPA. Jacob Adams was an ESPA director from Rochester. He worked on the development of the ESPA Foundation and planned to join its board. You will hear more about this afternoon as it has just recently been created, but he helped to plan that and was going to be more active in it. He supported local transit in Rochester, promoted the replacement of the Rochester Amtrak station, and traveled by rail all over the world and shared and promoted the experience of his rail trips that he took. In addition to advocating for passenger rail, he also advocated for children and public health in his local community in Rochester. It's very sad to hear, I believe it was last April or May, of Jacob Adams' death as a very active ESPA member. In addition, David Skoney was a longtime member who maintained the gardens at the Buffalo Depew Station for many years, bringing in beautiful flowers. In fact, several years ago, after getting off a train at Buffalo Depew, my wife pointed out the gorgeous flowers and said they were the most beautiful flowers she had ever seen at an Amtrak station. I then told her that was because of Dave Skoney, along with support of Robert Lenz and some of the station agents in Buffalo back at that time. Dave also strongly supported local transit in the Buffalo area. He helped ESPA push for NFTA buses connecting downtown with the Buffalo Bills football games in Orchard Park, which was completed, and he's been a longtime advocate of extending the NFTA Buffalo light rail system to Amherst, which, as we all know, is not yet finished and not yet funded, but is something that we've been advocating for a long time with Dave Skoney. Next one is tough. Robert Lenz was a past president of ESPA. He was actually the first person who I personally ever spoke to at ESPA when I randomly met him at the Buffalo Depew Station. Right after I had joined ESPA, he saw me reading the ESPA newsletter as both of us had waited to board an Amtrak train at Buffalo to Pew. He then came up to me, started talking about ESPA, and I explained my interest in the frequency with which I took Amtrak across New York State. After some discussion, but we continued the discussion on board, he then invited me to the next ESPA meeting. A couple of years later, he was elected president of ESPA, and on that same day, I was elected vice president of ESPA. Very sad to see the passing of Bob Lenz. He lived in the Buffalo area and also operated a bed and breakfast for several decades. Steve Salatti was also the president of ESPA. He was actually the president before Bob Lenz, which was when I first joined ESPA and served. And he served a couple of terms as president and remained active in the organization until his recent death. Ironic that I joined when he was president, and he leaves us as I am president of ESPA. Also, Bruce, you had a couple other things to say about Steve?
I was fortunate to have known Steve for many years, both he and his wife, Lynn. They lived in Mexico, New York. Steve was a great person. He was one of the founding members of ESPA, actually, going back to 1980. You concur with that, Mr.? We have another former president, or vice president, right here, Mr. English. But Steve was a great guy, always had a very good worldly perspective. Steve loved the garden, and that was his second passion. And he fought a very courageous battle with a very unique type of brain cancer, which unfortunately took his life this past year. I have spoken with Lynn after his death several times, and she sends her regards and certainly wants to let everybody know how much ESPA meant to Steve over the course of all his involvement with us.
If we could now, just in the memory of Jacob Adams, Dave Skoney, Robert Lenz, and Steve Salatti, if we could just have a brief moment of silence and for thinking about what they have done for this organization over the past 45 years. Okay, thank you to everyone, and once again, thanks to Jacob, Dave, Robert, and Steve for the massive amount of work they've done for this organization. To lose, as you can see, I went to the last screen, but as you can see, by just between September and December, we lost 3 of them. So that was a pretty quick succession to lose 3 very active members, and then Jacob was obviously a little earlier in the year. At this point, I guess, do you have some membership, Bruce, or we'll just go sit down with membership?
Sure. Gary wants me to talk about membership. Clearly, anybody who is not a member of ESPA, we encourage you to join. We can help you do that today. If you need to renew your membership, we'll be happy to help you with that. Even if you think you've just renewed, we'll be happy to extend your membership for decades if you want. Not a problem. We have all electronic means to take as much money from you as you wish, and you'll hear more from me about the foundation and ways to give to that this afternoon. But again, if you have any questions concerning membership, somebody had a question about what their term is, I can check on that later. I can pull up the database with the membership information a little later on. But again, any questions, please let us know. Andy?
And as treasurer of the foundation, I would be very happy to accept any checks from any member of the audience.
Right. Andy's taking my steam already, but there'll be more ways to take your money for the foundation later too. So,
okay, thank you, Bruce. Okay, at this point, I'd like to invite up our first 2 speakers. They're from New York State, and that's Dave Ullman and Janet Hope. Janet is the Assistant Commissioner of New York State. We have had her before our annual meeting, and David is the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, so for New York State. So now I'll throw it over to David and Janet. I'm not sure which one is speaking first, or if you're doing how you're doing this, but I'll throw the podium over to you guys. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, let's make sure I know how this works. Great.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks to Steve and Gary and the whole team at ESPA. Delighted to be here today. Thanks for coming out on this dreary, rainy day. Although not bad in the train. Okay, I came up here on the Maple Leaf this morning from Brooklyn by way of Moynihan with a number of the folks here, and it was a very pleasant ride. So. I do think, I ride the train frequently, especially during budget season where we're currently at. I'm back and forth on Empire Service a few times a week, it seems like. Riding the trains and buses around New York State is one of the things that I like to do. It's also one of the things that the governor likes to do, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But happy to provide an overview to this group of some of the things that we're doing over at the state governor's office. I'm joined by my colleague Janet Ho, who's an assistant commissioner over at the state DOT and responsible for our rail programs. But we're excited. We're excited. There's a lot of good things going on, and I'm happy to share with you. So why don't we just start off? I'm going to talk a little bit about 2024. We had a great year. We had a record number of passengers on Empire Service, on the state-supported Amtrak routes, over 2 million passengers, over $100 million in revenue. Metro North, post-pandemic ridership record. I was talking to a few folks before this. We've seen kind of steady ridership gains since the pandemic. Obviously, the world is different now, right? And people are still working remotely to some extent. But year over year, we are seeing increases, 5%, 7%, and I'm confident that we'll get back to 2019 levels soon enough. Record on-time performance. That's an all-time record, 98% for Metro North. And by the way, that's while we are reconstructing the Park Avenue Viaduct, right, which takes the vast majority of Metro North trains into Grand Central. So maintaining that type of stellar on-time performance while we're doing major capital projects. Long Island Railroad, 75 million passengers in 2024. Again, record on-time performance, not quite as good as Metro North, 96%. I'm trying to play them off one another, trying to get the best out of both. But that is also a record performance for Long Island Railroad. I think, as folks know, a couple years ago, we opened up Grand Central Madison, just an entirely new terminal in Manhattan that brings Long Island Railroad to East Midtown. We completed the third track project, right, which was a major capital project on Long Island, and following the completion of that, we increased service by 40%. Okay, so we are. Other transit agencies and states across the country are reducing transit service. We are increasing it. So far in 2025, ridership's up 4% on Metro North, 8% on the Long Island Railroad. I was talking to someone beforehand and noted that maybe part of that is congestion pricing. I don't think all of it is. But we are seeing people continue to come back to the railroads. Several weeks, we've had 99% plus on-time performance at Metro North, including a few days with 100% on-time performance. Highest ever on-time performance for February, Long Island Railroad, over 96%. And then just a few days ago, our new Metro North president, Justin Vanashek, he greeted passengers at Grand Central, announcing a new Metro North schedule, cutting 10 minutes on Super Express New Haven service. That's 90 minutes between New Haven and Grand Central Terminal. That, by the way, that is 3 minutes faster than the Acela. Okay? That is the sorry Margaret. We love the Acela. This one's a little bit cheaper, and now it's also a little bit faster, but that's okay. So the point is, we are intensely focused on improving rail throughout New York State, getting passengers the best rides, the fastest rides, comfortable, safe, clean, and reliable. That's what we're about. Okay, so I thought it would be useful to just talk about a couple of the capital projects that we're doing. and Janet's also going to do a couple. The first one I want to talk about, I'm sure folks here are aware of it. It's the Gateway Hudson Tunnel project. Some people call it the nation's most urgent infrastructure project. You know, we're building 2 new rail tracks under the Hudson River, and then rehabilitating the existing North River Tunnel. You know, the tunnel was damaged during Hurricane Sandy. If you want to rehabilitate it while running the type of service that we run, that would cause, you know, major delays, major service cuts. You can't do it. And so the idea is to build a new set of tunnels, which will give you redundancy, the ability to take the current ones out of service, fully rehabilitate them, and then at the completion of the project, you'll have four tracks, 2 in each direction, and that, you know, that not only will that give you redundancy and reliability on your trips, eliminating a single point of failure, but it would also allow us to increase capacity over time, and support regional growth. So this is a really important project. You know, in terms of status, I just want to note a couple things. We reached financial close in July 2024 with a signing. Yes.
Can we hold questions till the end? We can do questions after you're done.
Okay, but it's premature saying that.
We'll do it after you're done.
Okay, sorry. So we reached financial close, $6.88 billion grant from the Federal Transit Administration, $3.8 billion grant from the Federal Railroad Administration, and nearly $4 billion in loans from the federal government. That has brought up the federal share on that project to nearly 70%. Why is that important? Because we're saving your taxpayer dollars, right? We are trying to get you as much rail as possible at the lowest cost, your wallets and your pocketbooks. Nearly 70% of that project is federally funded, and the remainder, the 30%, which is New York, New Jersey, and the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, are being financed through federal loans. Okay, so we have dramatically reduced the impact of this on New York tax dollars. It is a huge accomplishment, and we're really excited about it. We have 5 packages already in construction on both sides of the river and within the river. What you see here is a picture of the Hudson River ground stabilization package. The fact is the soil underneath portions of the Hudson is sludgy. It's not as solid as it needs to be to put in a tunnel. So we're injecting, you know, jet grout and all sorts of things into the river to make it a solid riverbed that we can build a tunnel through. And we have two additional packages in procurement. This is a really big deal. We're really excited about it. They are going at lightning speed, and it is one of the most important infrastructure projects in the entire country. I want to do one more here. Metro North, Penn Station access. This is a really exciting project and kind of goes towards our view of making the most with the existing infrastructure that we have. So Amtrak's Hellgate line, of course, I'm sure folks here have ridden it. You know, it has additional capacity that can be taken advantage of, and that's what we want to do by running Metro North service, Metro North New Haven line service over the Hellgate line into Penn Station. And we're building 4 new Metro North stations in the East Bronx while we do it. Co-op City, Morris Park, Parkchester Van Nest, and Hunts Point. And that's going to cut travel times by as much as 50 minutes, improve regional connectivity, reliability, and support equity in the borough of the Bronx. So we've got, you know, groundbreaking a few years ago. We're in the middle of heavy construction, especially at the Leggett interlocking, which is in Hunts Point. But this is a really exciting project. We probably don't talk about it enough, but it is an absolutely you know, groundbreaking type of project that we are currently in construction on in the Bronx and in Westchester. Okay, now I'm going to pass it over to Janet for a couple more projects, and then back to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'll just brief interruption. I was going to say, I'm sure I'm really pleased to be here today. Pleased to be presenting with Dave. Secretly, I know some of you are probably sad that Ray Hessinger is not here, and you're not getting the super dedicated information that Ray tends to bring. But I'm really happy to be here today and speak to some of the projects that the department is working on to help advance rail in New York State. So, as Dave mentioned, the first one is the Livingston Avenue Bridge. Dave, I think you said you wrote over it this morning, as I'm sure some of you did. We're very excited about this project. I think last year we gave a status update on it, and you know, and I think we've come a little ways. I don't think at the time that we had presented last year, the project had not yet been awarded. So since that time, that contract has moved forward. It's been awarded. It was awarded in July of last year. The construction work and some of our work on the ground began immediately after that, within the next month, starting to collect soil samples, do borings, do some... Is that me? I was going to say, do some of the preliminary work. Am I holding something too close?
No, keep going, Janet. We're working on it.
Make me jump right out the door. I was going to say that, so right, we began work immediately after that construction contract had been awarded. I think you might have seen, if you are local, some of the work that's been going on. You've seen barges out there doing some of the soil collection, boring collection. You'll have seen a lot of coordination as our contractor starts to stage their equipment to get ready for construction. And kind of in the background, there's been a lot of work as this is a design build contract. The contractor is working on finalizing design plans for final design of the project. And in April, we should start seeing more work move forward with relocating into the Amtrak yard that is near the site, as well as more intensive work on the multi-use trail that folks see on the Troy Rensselaer side. So we're very excited about this project. It has, and we're doing a lot of work to get anticipated construction completion, 2028. So we'll take a little bit of time to move everything forward. It's a lot of coordination between a lot of different agencies, obviously NISDOT, Governor's Office, Amtrak, and FRA, and other local municipalities. But very excited to see this move forward, and it'll be, you know, it's a critical link. I was going to say, I don't think I need to sell any of you on the importance of the project, but it is very exciting for us. It was a Civil War era bridge. We are bringing it back up to modern specs and standards. We'll be able to run multiple tracks over it, which is going to be great. It'll increase capacity for both passenger rail as well as freight rail. So it's a win-win project. The next project we were going to highlight is actually the Rhinecliff Station project, the platform and the interlocking. Just to provide background on this project, this is actually two combined projects. It is the high-level platform and interlocking project that DOT applied for a grant award in 2021. That was to essentially establish new interlockings along the route to replace the current low-level platform with a high-level platform, which should make boarding on and off the trains a little easier, a little faster. There's a replacement of a pedestrian bridge that is associated with this project, as well as new elevators and stairs on the external portion of the project. This is combined, as mentioned, with actually Amtrak's project to improve the actual interior of the station building, bring things into ADA compliance. That project includes repairing windows and doors and masonry, new electrical, an emergency generator and transformer, making the bathrooms and other facilities in the station accessible, providing new vending machines, making stair repairs, upgrading like the HVAC system and things like that at the building. Additional site improvements will include reconfiguring the parking area and new lighting and wayfinding. Current status of this project, which I know we get many questions about, so I will acknowledge that up front. We are working very hard in combination with Amtrak to advance it as quickly as possible. We are working with FRA, since it's been combined into one project, to provide all of the information that FRA needs to complete essentially the environmental process. That's where we've been. It's been trying to provide a lot of information to Federal Railroad Administration to essentially let them be reassured that we're doing what we need to do to be in compliance with NEPA and checking those boxes before we can advance the project further forward. Current anticipated finding essentially what we're hoping to get from FRA on the final decision on that NEPA process is, I think, in 2026. But, you know, we're working with them. We're trying our best to expedite it. And I will just say, I don't want to bring too much of, I will call it federal politics into it, but I do just want to acknowledge that FRA in particular has had some impacts from the various staffing actions that have taken place at the federal level. So we're doing our best to work with them and try to make sure that our project continues forward while they're working probably with lesser staff. But we're doing everything we can to advance this project forward timely. And with that, all right. We wanted to provide an overview for everybody on the Amtrak Aero train sets. And I am advised that most of our photos did come from Amtrak, so did a little plug. Photos from Amtrak about the train sets. In terms of the current status, so the Aero train sets are being produced by Siemens. I was going to say, I do believe that you guys have a presenter from Siemens later this afternoon. Hello, thank you so much for working on our train sets. Look forward to hearing what you have to say. Just to provide a general overview, Amtrak has a base order. This is nationwide, not just for New York, of 83 train sets that they have ordered and are currently being produced in, I think, the California facility at Siemens, and 17 of those train sets are allocated to the New York State supported services. So that will be 17 new train sets for Empire service, Maple Leaf service, Eden Allen, and Adirondack service. Our anticipated delivery for here in New York, since there are a large number of train sets, ours is for 2030 is when we anticipate the new train sets being delivered here to New York. Amtrak does have the option to purchase additional train sets as well as additional locomotives and cars while they have the overall course of this contract in place. Basically, I think we'll call it format of that contract is that the vendor will notify Amtrak essentially about a year before the contract option closes, or the option to order additional train sets, cars, and locomotives, and states will be made aware so we can try to make decisions. We do have the ability to work with Amtrak to put in orders in advance of that. Those conversations, I think, are ongoing. I think the first set of train sets hasn't quite gone into been delivered yet, and so I think there will be continued conversation about when it will make sense to potentially order additional equipment off of this contract to help supplement New York state-supported service. And that's the overview. We thought we would provide some images of what the new train sets look like. So this is the aero exterior, the front of the train. I actually realized that when I put these two together, they're very close, but it's actually two images of the vestibule. One is for a coach class train set, and one is a business class train set. They're essentially similar, just a different sign designating that in the vestibule. This is a rendering of what aero coach seating will look like. So updated, has the headrests. So, and I believe I understand that ESPA, was it you, Steve, I think, sat in on some of the presentation of this and weighed in on as the aero development was moving forward. And then this is a rendering of the business class seating on the new aero trains. So we're very excited once this once the new train sets are delivered to New York. All right, and Dave, I think it's back over to you.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the governor's State of the State proposal for a package of investments and initiatives specifically targeted at Hudson Valley Rail, and our goal of helping people get around, providing alternatives to driving, providing fast, reliable, safe ways to move around our state efficiently, which often means rail. So here's a long quote from the governor. I don't need to read it, but basically what we're saying is we want to start on doing what we can on cost-effective kind of nuts and bolts improvements. You know, what's the low-hanging fruit? Where can we get the most bang for our buck to improve rail in the Hudson Valley, which is important not only just for the valley, but you know, statewide. If you're going from New York City to Albany, if you're going from New York City to Buffalo, it's the same thing, right? Any type of improvement you get in that region accrues for all of those trips. Okay, there's a picture of the governor taking the train. She's taking the train like all the time these days. I love it. It's usually her suggesting it. You know, she has to get somewhere. She'll say, "Will we take the train?" And we say, "Absolutely, Governor. You know, we'll set it up." And of course, I like the person in the background doing the surreptitious picture. You can see. It's just, hey, the governor's on the train. Okay. Okay, so the first piece of the proposal that she announced would be to do a set of capital improvements, you know, to do planning, evaluation, and design for a set of projects between New York City and Poughkeepsie, such as a second track at Skoney Robert, which we're going to talk about shortly, interlocking, signaling, and track work at Croton Harmon, and capacity improvements at Poughkeepsie Yard. As well as a signaling redesign near Yonkers. The last of which we can just do. We don't need to plan it. It's already planned and designed. We're just going to go ahead and do it. The goal here is to increase capacity, reduce delays, improve safety, and cut travel times by as much as 15 minutes for certain trips. I mentioned earlier that we've shortened the Super Express New Haven line trips between New Haven and Grand Central to less than 90 minutes. We're going to do the same thing. With Poughkeepsie to Penn. You know, we put $25 million in the governor's executive budget this year to kickstart that work. And I'm pleased to share that both houses, the Senate and the Assembly, matched it in their one-house proposals. So budget negotiations are ongoing still. And we'll see what the enacted budget looks like. Hopefully it'll be coming soon, but you know, typically when all three chambers put in funding for something, it does become part of the budget. So we're very optimistic about this. I mentioned the Skoney Robert second track. So again, this is one of those things that we want to take a serious look at. It would be the addition of a second track along the Skoney Robert movable bridge, which is just north of Manhattan, really part of Manhattan. Look, the idea is there's just one track there, right? And so, you know, if you've got trains going from different directions, one of them has to wait. You know, you've got crossovers there where Metro North comes in. But if you add a second track there, you can reduce delays, improve the operation, eliminate conflicts, and enable higher speed crossovers. If you take this route routinely, as I do, you will know. Like, I'm sure folks here have gotten delayed at that junction, and this would be a valuable project to eliminate those types of delays. Okay, I do want to spend a minute on the MTA's capital program, which again has been proposed and is under review and under negotiation. But assuming that gets improved, MTA will evaluate and design other potential rail improvements in the region. A few that we've decided to look at include a third track on Metro North Harlem line, as well as thinking about whether you could actually connect Metro North Hudson line service to Penn over the same corridor as Empire service, which would allow, you know, more kind of regional commuters to take advantage of what we think is a great route, great service. Also, the MTA will establish a regional rail working group with our other state and rail partners to promote better coordination on interoperability, ticketing schedules, and customer interfaces. You know, we think this is really important. We have all these different types of government entities and rail systems, and everybody should be working together better. So it's groups like these which help, you know, convene folks who can help us make those types of improvements and suggestions. We're excited about it. One of the things we want to look at is the 2026 World Cup. In the past, we've done Metro North train to the game, right, out in what's currently MetLife, and we want to look at doing that again for the World Cup. We want to look at other types of future opportunities for regional rail service. Okay, and then just lastly here, you know, I think there's also an acknowledgement that while our east of Hudson transit service is fantastic, sometimes the west of Hudson transit service lags behind a little bit. You know, our on-time performance out there is not as good. Service is run by New Jersey Transit, and there are challenges with that infrastructure. If you're out there, you know, you don't have a one-seat ride into Manhattan. I'm from Rockland County originally, so I know a lot about it. And we want to really start thinking about, hey, what are the cost-effective things we can do to improve the experience of riders out there? There's a lot of interesting things going on in Orange County. We want to think about shuttle bus service to attractions like Woodbury Commons. What about express commuter buses? We're in the process of building a $10 billion bus terminal in Midtown. We'll talk about that during the next year, during our bus presentation, okay? But, you know, what about express buses to the facility, microtransit service, and other types of opportunities? So, you know, we're committed to improving transit west of Hudson as well as east of Hudson. Okay, and back to Janet for just a couple more slides here, and then we'll take a quick question and answer.
Okay. So we know that there is an interest from some folks here in this audience about a couple of the two projects that are proposed here. So we kind of wanted to just address them and provide a little bit of an update. But we know that there is the Niagara Falls Maintenance Facility, which we have discussed for a number of years with Amtrak. It's a good project. The idea is that we would construct an additional maintenance facility out near Niagara Falls. It would be covered. It would allow for maintenance work to occur on the trains at that location, not outside in the cold. I mean, I think we all know Niagara Falls in the winter is not necessarily the most conducive environment to trying to service the Amtrak trains as they get ready to either turn around and continue their journey back south or head out further north and west. So that's essentially the bones of the project. We've had ongoing conversations between NISDOT and Amtrak about this project. Previously, preliminary design had been conducted on the facility. However, that preliminary design that was done originally was based off of, it was when we still assumed that we would be using the old P32, well, our existing P32 locomotives and the Amfleet 1 cars. However, since we have the lovely new aero train sets coming, they are longer, they have different specs. So we are currently working to essentially obtain those specs, update the preliminary design, and we'll be continuing to work with Amtrak to figure out timing and how best to advance that project. But just so folks know, this is on our radar. There is work going on as we continue to try to advance that project. The other, I will maybe call this one proposal that routinely comes up, I think is referenced, obviously in our Tier 1 EIS and Park Corridor Service Development Plan, talks about expanded service to Saratoga Springs. This proposal involves adding 2 additional round trips to Saratoga Springs on a daily basis. Current status of this is we have been in conversations with Amtrak to try to see what it would take to implement this additional, these 2 additional round trips to Saratoga, and we're continuing to work with them just to figure out logistics, estimated cost of implementing this, and try to pin those things down so that we can move forward with proposal to implement this. So those are kind of, I think, the 2 last things. I think the last one is just the template end of the slideshow slide. So with that, I guess we open it up for questions.
Yeah. Okay, question.
Yes, well, really true. You showed a picture of the 2 proposed rail lines underneath the Hudson. That
Was it the only gateway tunnel?
okay. Yes. And I was wondering how much of this is dependent on the federal government. And I realize that some of it has been spent already, but additional money, will probably be needed. Because it mentions 2030, I think, completion date, and I'd just like to get some sort of sense of that, please.
So I appreciate the question. So the project is we would consider it fully funded.
Excuse me, can you use the mic?
Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay, so we consider the project to be fully funded, meaning that we secured the grants and loans that we needed this past summer in order to award all the packages, get into construction, and we secured partner commitments from each of the states and from the Port Authority and from Amtrak, and so the project is fully funded. Now, with that said, the FTA capital investment grant, for example, which is a big chunk of it, nearly $7 billion, is subject to appropriation. So the grant is awarded, it's obligated, but it ultimately, we do need those appropriations to come in. We expect that they will. We expect that the federal government will comply with the terms of the grant agreements that we've signed. We're not slowing down, and we haven't heard any issues either. This is an important project, important for our national economy. It's been a bipartisan initiative, and obviously there are certain challenges with the federal government at the moment, but so far this is not one of them. This project is going quite well.
So there's no discussion about rescinding the grants.
No discussion.
Okay, so.
Chris?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, you need to log in. Yeah.
Okay. I know this has been an ongoing topic, but now that New York State and Amtrak, New York State DOT and Amtrak are in the same room, which is wonderful. What about the idea of New York State paying Amtrak for food service on New York Albany trains? It's a little disheartening. I know we have food service west of Albany, but running empty cafe cars and people paying business class fares, and they can't even get a coffee or a Coke because there's no cafe attendant. What's the status of that?
Yes, and I see Margaret also looking at me. We are definitely exploring reinstituting the food service. We've been talking for a while now about making sure, like, what would be required essentially to why am I blanking on it? Supply the cafe car as well as staffing. So it'll take some time. It's identifying, right, because there's always ramp up time anytime you're going to roll out and essentially, I mean, it's not new, it would be reinstituting the service. We definitely hear you loud and clear that folks want it, so we are trying to figure out the best plan to put something back into place, but it's just working through, again, the logistics, it's staffing, it's making sure that there's food supply, it's making sure that we can get some, I think it's like I would call it relatively moderate work done at Rensselaer Station done in order to be able to fully supply and staff those cafe cars, but the conversations are on.
So is it a question of money?
I think it's a question of both money and staffing, and so we're trying to work through that, and I think just like I think everyone here has probably heard over the last several years that there's been difficulty just in terms of being able to hire and make sure that we're fully staffing everything. And that kind of continues. It's better, but it's still ongoing.
Thank you.
Andy?
And thank you, Ms. Howard, for hearing this. I'm an engineer, a bridge engineer. My hometown's over in New York, central western New York. A lot of the stuff you've been discussing with these expedited calls deals with basically us and Valley Works. And we have a couple of infrastructure bridges, and they basically go over a New York State route, Route 370, between Syracuse and Liverpool. One is the bridge over Park Street, congestion point, CSX. Nature, if we're going to have the implementation of the EIS, we're proposing a 5-track bridge. That bridge has to be replaced. It has to be raised. It's too low. And the one, even lower bridge, just a mile north of there on Lake Parkway, which is a 19th century bridge that used to go over a canal. It was never meant to go over a highway. My grandfather worked on that highway in the 1930s, by the way, one of the projects of the Depression era. So my question is, these are two great bridges to be at least replaced. Is there this department working with anything regarding any planning, any design, preliminary design on these two bridges? They both, as a civil engineer, can easily be solved. But the point is, there has to be something there to make it happen.
So I'll take a stab at answering that. The first one you mentioned, Park Street, as you mentioned, is a congestion point. We have been looking at that location for a number of years. It is actually part of a package, a grant package we received several years ago for Syracuse congestion relief. Over the last maybe year and a half, department staff have been working on preliminary design and pre-construction efforts to just try to bring that bridge. I mean, there's other elements of the project that they've been working on as well, but to try to bring that to essentially at least preliminary design so we can advance that project as future, right? Because then the funding is the question, and typically we tend to try to put forward federal grant packages to FRA to fund those projects, but if we can finish preliminary design on that, that it will be well positioned essentially to put forward an application. The issue is we've just had ongoing conversations. It's CSX territory, so coordinating with the freight railroad is part of the issue, as well as coordinating with FRA. So preliminary design working there, at least with respect to Park Street. And if you want, I can go on to Onondaga Lake Parkway. Very familiar with that one. The department is very familiar with Onondaga Lake Parkway. I feel like everyone in the Syracuse and DOT Region 3 area is familiar with it, as I think there are memes about how frequently there are low bridge hits on that parkway. Again, it is on our radar. The region is working very closely with folks to try to determine kind of what the best options are there for what to do, how to solve for what's going on at that bridge.
May I make a suggestion? When the press is there, I would hope that somebody from main office, the rail office, talk to the press and not the region. Because the main office, great messengers group, they're the experts. Believe me, people at the region, well intended, but they're not the experts on the project.
Thank you for that.
Okay, let's get somebody from the back.
Yeah, Dave Raleigh from Syracuse, I don't want to agree with Andy. We live not too far apart. So let me bring out another project that's going to be really big in central New York. That's our chip plant. And Micron is going to hire thousands of people along the construction and when it's done operating. For those of you that is out there that's asking, they just go around with wastewater treatment plants next week. So they've got their movement on it. But one of the things that's right there by where the project is, I put my vote, is the line that comes out from Iowa for Montreal Secondary. It goes into the city by the transportation center, by the mall. We have a great opportunity to bring local rail, passenger rail service on a commuter basis, like they do in Chicago and other major hubs across this country. Bring people to that project from as far as maybe Alaska in the north, and Syracuse in the south, because that's an integral part there. That's a corridor that should be possible. And I don't think there's more than 4 trains a day that come down from Watertown, north and south. And of course, there's some regional activity that goes up there. But there's an opportunity there to bring, along with the bridge project, to get the interline in place. So that people can come in, maybe stay, drop their car off at the mall. There's plenty of parking, there's battery charging stations, and get on the train and go north to work. Syracuse, like many cities, is developing a lot of their major buildings in downtown are living in the cities. They don't have a car. They're not. Well, that's right. So anyways, that's going to be a real congested area. There's a rail network right there that could be blossomed into a great transportation for central New York. And I hope that they do something with the bridge.
Look, I appreciate the thought. I think that's very interesting. I want to learn more, and we'll look into it. Thanks.
We have time for probably 2 more questions.
Yeah, I recently came back from the trip to London where they have one card, Oyster card, for a lot of the regional transportation. And you mentioned the regional rail working group. Is there any thought to have one card, because TA has Omni and Uzi Train has one, and then PATH has another one. Is there any thought to have one card for that region?
Yeah, look, it's a great point. It is absolutely something that we are working towards, to have better integration on ticketing. You mentioned Omni. A bunch of our not only the MTA, but several other partner agencies use it, whether it's Nice Bus or the Beeline, AirTrain. The other thing I would note is that it relies on an open loop payment system, right? So you can just tap your phone or your credit card. That's the same software that's going in on the PATH, for example. So there really will be some opportunities to get interoperability among our systems. It is absolutely something we should be doing, and I want to do more of it.
And I don't know your last question. I had a question about Frankfurt, because that's my home station. I've kind of been using it pretty much most of my life at this point. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what you're doing with parking? Because in summer, the whole town turns into a parking lot for the station, and there's just not enough room there.
So I think at this point, we're still working our way through environmental, right? So it's not, I think we're not at a point yet where I could speak with any authority or definite, can't talk this morning, essentially any, specificity about exactly what that parking will look like and exactly what the configurations and options are going to be. Obviously, we're working closely with Amtrak on that as we try to just get through environmental so that we can advance those plans to a point where, right, because it's going through environmental, it'll still all have to go through actually the public comment process. So yeah, I'm sure there will be many good conversations to come on that, but I know both the department as well as Amtrak are very aware of the parking concerns that are around that station, as well as just, Rhine Cliff in general, that we've heard a lot about the lack of parking that's available currently.
I know I know there's a problem with people who aren't there all week, say, leaving their cars and stuff like that. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to us.